to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you. And welcome to our November 18th meeting. Please note the council is in attendance except for Mr. Balknight, who is absent. He will not be here this evening. And the first item on our agenda is communications B. We have items from council. We've got 2 items on here. And I have a few others. Council, y'all want to wait? Let me handle these first, or do you have something you want to bring up now? If not, we'll go ahead and go into the first item is actually mine. Well, I'll tell you what, let's rearrange some things. We do have, let's do your business first.
Okay.
Why don't you go straight into that item?
Sure. I had asked the mayor if he would allow me to present a plaque for retirement for Ruby Majewski. Ruby, you're going to have to come up. I know Ruby said she didn't want to speak, but I'm going to read the plaque and then I'll give it to you. Ruby is my executive secretary who's retiring after 22 years of service to the city, 20 years in the city manager's office. But I wanted to do it at council because not only does she serve as my executive secretary and the assistant city managers, John Kaminsky's, she serves for the mayors and the council members, and she does a lot of coordinating of schedules and making sure y'all's business is taken care of just like mine and John's is. So I wanted to present that tonight, which is a little rare. We don't usually do that, and she was willing. So I want to read the plaque, and then I'll get up and give it to you. But it's presented to Ruby Majewski, Executive Secretary, February the 3rd, 1992 to December 31st, 2014, in recognition of 22 years of service, of loyal and dedicated service to 3 city managers, 4 mayors, and 20 council members. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody that can deal with all these politicians and city managers for that long does deserve a plaque at least. So. Yes, thank you, Ruby, and you will be missed. So
Absolutely.
You can always come visit us. So.
Excuse me, Mayor. We are having some technical issues with our recording tonight. We are going to try and get that back up and running. I don't know what y'all. It may take us a few minutes. We're probably going to have to do a cold boot.
Let's take 3 to 5 minutes. Let me know. Give me some. Everybody, let's just take a break for a moment.
Thank you.
The meeting, and for those of you who walked in a few minutes late, we had technical difficulties on the audio for the system, and we do want to always have the best recording possible for the public to view the meetings later. So. Okay, let's move into, we're going to do item F3 real quick.
Mayor, thank you. This is a city manager report regarding a 5-star award that the city secretary's office has won and will be awarded shortly. The 5-star award is awarded by the Texas Department of State Health Services Vital Statistics Unit, and it reflects the quality of work being done within city secretary's offices statewide. There are very few cities in the state that receive the 5-star award. In fact, this year there were only 48 5-star winners in the entire state. And of those, 21 were considered exemplary winners, which is another level even above that. Scarlett has been employed as the city secretary for 14 years now, and out of those 14 years, including this year, her office has been awarded the 5-star award 12 times. I think that's an incredible record that shows what a quality city secretary we have and the quality work being done in Vital Records down there. She's here tonight, and I wanted to extend my congratulations to her as well as her staff, who is in the back of the room. April and Kayla are both here tonight. They do a fabulous job every day at the front windows for the city. meeting and greeting people, working not only on vital statistics, but on other permanent and record-related issues. And I wanted to congratulate Scarlett and her staff on winning the 5-star award again. And thank you for your service to the city. Unlike when Gilbert wins his awards and we have these great big obelisks to present, we don't have anything to present to Scarlett tonight. She will be presented the award at a conference next month in December. So congratulations.
Very good. Wonderful. I walk by the office many times, and it's always no yelling, no screaming, everything sounds so that's a good sign. So, but it's important. Y'all interact with a lot of the public, so we appreciate the good work you do. Okay, back to items from council. The street crossings for visually impaired pedestrians. I had a few questions, and Mr. Short was going to address that. Would you like me just to kind of mention my question first? Or?
Certainly.
I had recently visited with a group of visually impaired and presented them with a proclamation, and they had a lot of questions, and I told them that I would look into some of this. Most notably, the crossings. For example, the downtown, we have the little that count down the numbers. There are those that talk, that count down 8, 7, and audio, and they were asking about those. Do we have any plans to utilize those in the future, or do you have a process for how do you decide where to put one of those?
Okay. Let me, I took the liberty of putting together some information on these devices. What we're talking about is accessible pedestrian signals. Basically, it's a device that, just like you say, it will use an audible or a non-visual means of communicating the walk and don't walk information from a pedestrian crossing to someone who may be sight impaired. And so, and typically it's a speaker, and not only does it either uses tones or beeps, or sometimes in language counts down the walk period only. And we do have some, these weren't required until 2012. ADA adopted a new set of standards in 2012 that required that all new signalized intersections where you were using visual pedestrian signals needed to be expanded to also use these accessible pedestrian signals. So we have them on the signals that were installed after 2012, or after 2011, because the rules were published in 2011 and we started adopting them then. Where there is a route and where there is visual pedestrian signals. So the signal at Business 59 in Teakwood, where the new Walmart recently went in, that signal has APS there. The signal at Mockingbird at Carriage Drive has APS. The signal at Navarro and Hoovar has it. Some signals where we didn't install them are, for instance, John Stockbauer in Business 59, John Stockbauer and Lone Tree Road, and Loop 463. Because in those situations, there's no sidewalk, there's no route, there's no visual pedestrian signal there, so there's no requirement to do this. To answer your question about when do we go back and put them in, there's no requirement to do so from an ADA standpoint until the signal is reconstructed. Now, if we received requests for those at a certain location, we would, certainly try to work that into the budget process. The cost to go back and retrofit an intersection is about $10,000 for the equipment and about 48 man-hours to install.
Very good. You answered the question. So, but again, if someone does have obviously visually impaired, wouldn't be driving, and they tend to have a route to the bank or the grocery store, and they live close by, if they have a certain intersection that's problematic, they can contact us, and
Certainly.
we can fit that in so they can. Okay, very good. This is handy. Thank you. And also, as I understand it, in the future, any that we put in will have to have this audio technology. if we put them in.
If there is visual.
Right. Yeah. Otherwise, some intersections will have nothing at all. They don't require to have either one, visual or audio. Okay. Very good.
Question?
Yes, ma'am.
You made a comment about sidewalks. Is it going to be required that they have sidewalks too?
Typically pedestrian signals, visual pedestrian signals are installed when there is a route established at that intersection. In other words, where there's a sidewalk and a crosswalk, that's typically where we would put them. In a largely undeveloped area where there are no sidewalks now, we typically wouldn't put a pedestrian signal until it becomes developed, and then usually the developer would put in the sidewalks in front of their development, and at that point, any new signals that went in beyond that would receive them. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. The other item here, Victoria Transit fees, since Mr. Bachnight is not, wasn't able to be here tonight, we asked Lisa with Transit to just come to the next meeting, because that was something he requested. So, anything else, items from council? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and go into citizens' communications, and anyone can come up to the podium and speak on any topic whatsoever. Try to keep your comments to 5 minutes out of courtesy for others. Also, I will mention, we do have a public hearing later in the agenda for the annexation, so if you're going to speak on that topic, you might want to wait till then, and that'll be in a few minutes. So, yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Staley. I'm the Executive Director of Golden Crescent Habitat for Humanity. And I think Jared mentioned to you guys last week that I had planned to be present today because we have something we want to present to council. Do we need to give it to the officer, or can Lee hand it out? Okay. So they're labeled. They have your names on them. This is Golden Crescent Habitats, or used to be Habitat for Humanity Victoria, our 20th anniversary. And so I came tonight to just say thank you for 20 years of partnership with Habitat. 20 years equals 85 families in Habitat homes. It equals over 1,000 Saturdays of getting it done, 8,000 plus unique volunteers, 1,720,238 nails, 83,456 2x4s in those homes. We've added over $3.5 million to the tax roll, and over $100,000 added to the tax base paid in property taxes annually. We've done 8 neighborhoods. So, and most of that was because of our partnership with the City of Victoria. With an average sales price of $55,000 and using primarily local suppliers, if you use the manufacturing factor of 7 to determine what kind of economic impact your project has had on the community, that means we've returned over $32 million, back to the Victoria community, because we build homes, the homes, that pays for jobs. It's just that whole process. So that's exciting for us and for you guys, because you've been a part of that. The City of Victoria has helped Habitat from the very beginning. From an 11-house build in 1997, helping with water taps, sewer taps, and other projects funded with CBDG funds through the years, the city has been a steady partner with Habitat, and we appreciate it. Last year, Golden Crescent Habitat established a Community Partner Award, named it after Dan Coleman, the owner of Zarsky Lumber. Coleman and Zarsky were quiet partners with GCHFH, but that help made all the difference to our 85 families. And this year, back in August, we voted to recognize the City of Victoria as our Community Partner of the Year Award. And these postcards are going to hit mailboxes tomorrow and the rest of the week. Could I get you to hand those out to each councilman? Thank you. And what it says is that we are recognizing the City of Victoria as our Community Partner of the Year Award. Partner of the Year. I'm here personally to invite you to our open house, which is going to happen at Swan Crossing on December 2nd. I know there's a council meeting, so I probably will come here to present the award to you guys, but we would love for you to come to the open house after council's over. Thank you. I know that Josephine and Emmett have been there before. Paul came last year. Charmel's been there. We would love for all of you to attend and let us say thank you as a board and with from all of our donors and volunteers. So tonight, as you consider granting us lots in Swan Crossing, we just want to say thank you for what you've done for us in the past. It's blessed 85 families, and we look forward to lots more partnerships with the city of Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daly. I'm really hoping I can be there on December 2nd. So we will try real hard. Wonderful. Citizens communication still open on, come talk about any topic whatsoever.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name's Homer Hill. I live at 3410 Swan Drive. I'm here speaking about habitat that's moving into our subdivision. We have 8 homes that were put in here back in, starting around 2011. We have 2 more that are going to open up here soon. They'll be completed, like she's saying. And I understand there's 3 more lots they're asking for. This subdivision wasn't built for habitat, as far as I know. It was built for the program that's set up for it. And it just seems like we're not giving that program any chance at all to survive, because y'all just, okay, they come and ask you for a lot, 2 lots, 3 lots. Here in a couple more years, they'll come and ask you for 3 more lots. You know, it's a constant. We need to let the system try to work to put the plan that was put in place. I don't want to see any more lots given out. I mean, there's 10 out there now. That's good enough for me. There's a handful of people there that aren't habitat that agree with me. So please, no more lots. Let the system work and see if we can do something else. Thank you.
Citizens communication still open? Okay, seeing no one coming up, we'll go ahead and close citizens communication. We'll move into our agenda, and section C, we have 2 items without public hearings.
Sure. The first is an ordinance amending the 2014-2015 City of Victoria Water Wastewater Fund budget in the amount of $255,700 to provide funding for the oversize agreement in the Salem Crossing Phase 1 subdivision, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing for savings, and declaring an effective date. This is a second and third reading.
Move we adopt?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any questions? We saw this 2 weeks ago, I know. Seeing none. Oh, question?
Gilbert, this is not part of the other amendment that we're going to be doing in a little bit, because this is not an encumbrance, right?
That's not part of the encumbrance, no, ma'am.
Okay. Any more discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
Item C2 is an ordinance amending Schedule 6 of Section 22-11 of the Victoria City Code related to traffic to reduce the speed limit of the recently annexed portion of North Navarro Street to 60 miles an hour, repealing parts of conflicting ordinances, providing a penalty not to exceed $200, providing for enforcement, publication, and savings, and declaring an effective date. This is also a second and third reading.
Get your exercise today, huh?
The same thing.
Got a handout for this one? Council, you want to make a motion?
Move we adopt.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Motion and second. Is there discussion or questions?
Mr. Mayor, last time we were up here and discussed this, the council asked for a map kind of that would show what the existing speed limits in this area were and then what we were proposing. So that's what you have before you, also on the screen. You can see there that we're making no changes to we're proposing no changes to the 55-mile-an-hour zone, but from there on out to the new city limits, currently there's a short section of 70 and there's even some 75 mile per hour, and we're proposing to reduce that then to 60 miles per hour. The speed limit would change to 70 at the new city limit line, and then out beyond that some distance, TxDOT would go back to 75.
Very good. That helps a lot. It's actually a very short distance. So, council, y'all have any questions? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. So the next items do have public hearings attached.
That's right.
C3.
Item C3 is an ordinance amending the 2014-2015 budget of the City of Victoria and carrying forward encumbrances outstanding at the September 30th, 2014, declaring an emergency, providing for severability and savings, and declaring an effective date. Mayor and council, because this is an emergency reading, we'll pass it on a single vote, but it requires a majority of 5 votes.
Council? Motion over here, second over here. Is there any questions on C3?
Just help me understand why some of this, especially the small amounts, why doesn't that get cleaned up before we start the new fiscal year?
There's actually, I can probably, if you have a specific one, but I guess in general, we do a lot of cleanup on these, but, you know, a department could place an order mid to late September, and the goods just haven't actually come in prior to September 30th. So it's really a snapshot as of September 30th, what is actually completed and closed out. If it's not, then we carry it forward.
The big number is the sewer plant,
That's correct.
Correct.
right?
Yeah, another way to look at this, Mr. Alvarez, is that during the budget process, of course, you're aware you have approved a budget, but that budget does not include any encumbrance. That's just for the allocation from 2015.
Then you-
During that time from, you have given that budget, Andrew's going through all the appeals and everything else. And as he said, there's a time lag there that we need to still clean up, but we still have to legally bring it before council to tell, we legally owe these items as an outstanding contract and an outstanding purchase. So we have to, I don't want to say it has to be done, but of course, y'all have to approve it, but technically, we have an obligation out there. It needs to be brought forward to y'all and brought it up on the budget so we can bring it back in line with the other new budget so we can start paying out some of these contracts as well.
Normally, it's about 10 to 15 million.
Andrew,
basis.
Yeah, on the operating funds, but this does cover everything from, you know, general fund. You know, notice the large ones are the construction funds itself.
Big
So-
ticketed
the
being,
biggest one is the plant.
that's kind of an anomaly there, I think, also.
I hope
Yes.
so.
I mean, you'll have some part of that on next year, the same ordinance. It'll be a part of it, because it won't be finished this next year.
Well, but in the end, that budget's going to look like 180 million.
Well, your amended budget is going to increase, yes,
Because of bringing this
because of
forward.
those items, yes.
Okay. Any further questions on C3? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign? Okay. Thank you, council. Now, C4 is just a public hearing. There's no action to be taken by
That's
council.
correct. That's correct. C4 is a public hearing to receive comment on the proposed annexation of approximately 706.02 acres of land in 7 geographical areas near the edge of the city and the associated service plan.
Thank you, Thomas. And before I ask people that want to speak to come up, I want to clarify something from the newspaper. And the easiest way for me to do this is just to read from the paper. The article that was discussing the annexation, I'm going to read from there. It says revenue from shoppers is leveled off and is even lagging behind last year's by about $211,000. And Victoria's financial records show it's mainly because of a decrease in oil and gas. Numbers changed, and so that data was actually from our August pro forma budget. In actuality, for the year, that budgeted year, we came in 0.3% over our budget, which that's a separate issue, is very astounding on its own, because we budgeted a little over, I don't know, $17.5 million in sales tax, and we came in $17.5 million and $5,000 over, which is absolutely astounding on a number that size. So actually, at that time, we were behind, but we came in slightly over. So I just wanted the public to have that information. I just want to add that. Let's go ahead and open up. Anyone who wants to come forward and speak about the annexation, this is the time, and give us your name and address. And we don't have the 5 minutes up, but try to abide by the 5 minutes, if you would. You can put the clock up. Or are they going to?
My name is Robert Bozart. We own a piece of property at 2745 Millette. That's been my home for 64 years and lived there, born on that property. And there's an old house back there in the back. I was born on that property. I wasn't born in a hospital. And I've lived there all my life, and I've enjoyed the freedoms that I've had to grow my own garden, raise my vegetables, burn my brush, whatever, the country living. And I built my home out there because I didn't want to live in the city. I own a piece of property in the city. I have a business here in Victoria in the city, and I know all the rules and regulations. But I think we need to use a common sense approach to annexing. It's not that we need more land for the city to develop, because there's plenty of open land right now that's up for development, and it's in the city limits already. One of our major issues is they're kind of taking us, we're sticking out there like a little handle out there on the end. There's about 300 acres to the side of me there that's been for sale for at least a couple of years, and they've had 2 or 3 developers look at it. Nothing's happening because of the pipelines, the cost of the creek, and there's just a lot of issues. It takes a lot of money to develop that land, so everybody passes on it. We are basically an agricultural area out there. I have probably a mile and a half directly behind me to 87, and then to the left of me to Briggs Boulevard is about another mile and a half, and to Parsons Road probably almost 2 miles. I have probably 1,500 acres of nothing but pasture behind me. My property lines up with, I think, Mr. Gonzalez's property. And because of the creek, he actually has donated some property for the Ball Airport extension to there so that he can someday develop that property. That's his intention, I presume, is the only reason he would give that land. And he's not being annexed. So I'm asking for your vote for no on this section, on section 5 of the, if I could convince y'all to not take us into the city, I'm asking for your vote not to take us into the city, if you would. I don't know any other way around it. I mean, if I get taken in, I can't see any advantage. I talked to Jarrett the other day, and he said he would give us a 15-year extension on hooking up to the city services. I really don't need city service. I have my own well, and I've been, out there all my life doing it on my own. And I would like to ask for your vote to exempt us from being annexed into the city. Mr. Kinney lives across the street. He's part of the Steve Klein group there. And I think I've heard that Steve Klein has the right to buy his property. Mr. Kinney is 85 years old. And he's going to live there the rest of his life as long as he can, but eventually Steve will buy that block and come in. And I can understand that being innocent. Another thing, we have a big telephone equipment thing that you can't run the sewer through. I mean, you can't run the utilities through. You'd have to tear that up. And then plus my brother's his building is right up close to the street. They would have to run that thing under his building or go through the middle of his showroom. I mean, everything about all that just doesn't seem like it's a good thing for the city. And it's not good for us, for sure. The utilities are already across the street on the other side. We don't need the utilities. We don't plan to hook to them if we can. And I'd like to continue to just operate the way I have all the rest of, I'm 64 years old. I'll be 65 here in another 7 or 8 months. And I'd plan to retire there. I'm too old to sell out and move out further in the country, and I just want to live there the rest of my life and enjoy the freedoms that I've had all these years. And I'm asking for your vote to vote no on our section there, if you would. And I would be willing to sign it's called a developmental agreement. It's an agreement that says that if we develop that property, y'all have the right to take us into the city. I never plan to develop that. It's really not economically feasible to do it because of all the pipelines and stuff through there. It takes so much of that property up that to bring it into city code, try to develop that property, it's not cost effective. And we take a lot of pride in our property. I don't, if you've ever gone by our place, we keep it mowed, manicured, clean. We don't have any junk sitting around. And we've been good citizens all these years. We've never had to call the police, never had to call the fire department. I mean, we burn our brush, but we do it in a sensible manner. We don't do it if it's in a burn ban. We do it, we wait till it rains, and when we get a good, like we just burned when we had all that rain that next weekend, we burned the brush because we knew that if we don't do it now, we may not be able to. We have issues this time of year. There's a bug that it's called a twig gurgler, and it trims all those weesach trees, and they only attack weesach trees, and all your weesach trees are just limbs all under it. Every week or two, you got to go out there and clean all that mess up, and you got to take it out to the brush pile. We have storms, and we have rose hedge. That's pretty aggressive growing. We have to clear that out with our tractors, and it's not something you can have the city pick up. I mean, we have country issues. If we get in, they're not going to go away if we get it, annexed into the city. We still have country issues we got to deal with. So I'm asking your vote to vote no on our section of property, if you would. I can't see, and I'm not against progress, but we're not out here trying to grab a bunch of land. I mean, we're not. There's plenty of land here for development in Victoria that's already in the city that's not being utilized. And, a lot of the growth, a lot of it's hype, I think. I mean, there hasn't been that many single-family homes built in Victoria. I mean, there's been more than what there have been in the past. We've only built, I think, about 125, 130 homes last year. And we're probably not going to get too many more than that this year. And that's quite a bit. I mean, considering where we were 10 years ago, it's a lot. But I built my home out there to enjoy the rest of my life in peace and quiet and solitude, and just wanted to ask for your vote, if you would, to vote no on that section of property, if you would. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mr. Bozart.
All right.
Public hearing is still open for anyone else.
My name is Gary Rigmani. I own the land at 5180 Hanselman Road. And I agree a whole lot with what Robert says. It's been family land. Going by the map that they sent out, it just went out and got land that was business oriented. They took 500 foot off of the highway 10, 15 years ago from us. We get in the gripe. That's all the commercial property that we would have had. The rest is farmland, ag land, which I'll be able to say, sign the ag exempt deal just like him. But, I mean, there's a 9.5 acre hole on my place, 13 feet deep. I don't know what y'all would want that for. Y'all have a business there on the front. It's on 2.5 acres. If you take that, I got no problem. Because I am a businessman here, and I have been here for 45 years. But to take the other 30 acres behind that, go around the rent house and a junkyard in front of me, wrong. I know right from wrong, and that's wrong. It's going out. They just went and got the 20-something acres that VEC built or bought to build out there. They went right around their place, and that's it. Nothing else. I think you should vote no on it, and that's about all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Rigamani. Public hearing is still open on this issue. Anybody would like to say anything, come on up. And I know, Mr. Bozart, you've met with staff, and Mr. Rigamani, if you have any questions, Jared, raise your hand. He can further on in between now and next month answer any further questions you have too. Make sure you give us a call if you have. Okay, seeing no one else jump up, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on, where we at, C4. And again, there's no action to be taken on this tonight. It was just for public hearing, so you guys can come down and communicate. And the vote will be at the December 2nd meeting, the first vote. So, thank you. Let's move into our consent agenda, Section D.
There are 6 items on the consent agenda tonight that will be approved by one collective vote. They are, first, D1, the approval of minutes of the regular meeting of November 4th, 2014. D2, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to purchase a replacement backup generator from Lofton Equipment Company of Houston, Texas for $27,196 via HGAC contract number GE02-14 and declaring an effective date. Item D3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to purchase a LifePak 15S version 2 cardiac monitor with charging station and required accessories from Physio Control Incorporated of Redmond, Washington in the amount of $35,207.35 and declaring an effective date. Item D4 is a resolution authorizing the payment of an annual maintenance costs for year 2 of a 3-year agreement with the Searcy Corporation to provide software support and maintenance for the Victoria Public Library's public catalog of holdings, cataloging, circulation system, inventory, and tracking of and payment of fines and fees in the amount of $37,341.20 and declaring an effective date. Item D5 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to pay the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality $69,828 for the annual Consolidated Water Quality Assessment fee for the regional wastewater treatment plant and declaring an effective date. Item D6 is a resolution awarding the 2014-15 sanitary sewer line cleaning project to Sewer Services of Texas Incorporated of Conroe, Texas, for their low bid of $78,250, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to complete the project and declaring an effective date.
Council?
Move we adopt.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. On the consent agenda, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that passes. We'll move into our resolutions.
Item E1 is a resolution appointing one member to the Building and Standards Commission and declaring an effective date.
Now, we had one, excuse me, we had one applicant.
That's right. One applicant, Mr. Eric Mercer, I believe.
And, yeah, we had that at the last meeting, and unless someone has anyone else to suggest, I'm fine with Mr. Mercer. Do y'all have anyone else that, otherwise?
Otherwise, by acclamation, we simply insert Mr. Mercer's name into the blank.
There's no responses. Did we ever do a letter to the Contractor Association?
I did. I contacted them, and I received no applications and no response back from them.
Move we adopt E1 and appoint Mr. Mercer.
Second.
Yes.
Sorry, you said acclamation. Okay, thank you. We have a motion and second. I see no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you, council.
Item E2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Railroad Controls Limited of Benbrook, Texas, to complete a quiet zone evaluation of all railroad crossings within the Victoria city limits in the amount of $32,400 and declaring an effective date.
Council?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Thank you. Mr. Kaminsky, did you have?
Here to answer questions.
Okay.
My understanding is the county did participate?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic.
Yes, Mr. Kaminsky and I went to the county commissioners meeting, and they were very agreeable to contribute the $12,000 and change to this project, so
And we're doing all the crossings?
we'll be able to. And I did explain to them a little bit what we did and why we were asking for it. So I'm very, what's the word, happy that they're participating.
And the
Good
goal-
job.
The
Appreciative.
goal is to take the information that we get back from the study and then be able to discuss it when we bring the CIP conversation back in the spring, and that way council can give us direction on movement in that area, because we'll have good estimates for cost.
I might echo Councilman Halapaska. I was in El Campo a couple of weeks ago and saw some of the ways they were doing their crossings, and it was quite unusual with the markings and signage and stuff, which just puzzled me, but apparently they can do some of that with limited materials and costs, I would think.
It depends on the crossing and
Yes.
the traffic count at each crossing, and I know I spoke to the people in El Campo, and they worked with the National Railroad Association to get those crossings, the quiet zones, just like we'll do when we do our study, so.
Very good.
There's a lot of factors at each crossing.
It is.
And I want to thank you guys, Mr. Alvarez and Mr. Halapaska. Y'all kind of didn't let this go away and brought it back, and here we are. So we might have a long-term solution to addressing each crossing little by little in each budget year till we can actually quiet down the train. So very good.
Well, it has been a perennial issue for as long as any of us here can remember. And we've looked at it a number of times over the years, and each time the answer came back, just way too much money. But then we see what El Campo can do, and we understand there might be a way to form a solution. We ought to at least look at this study and see. It has been a perennial irritation to many residents of the city. We may have a chance to solve something. Let's take a look at it.
When will we have something back? be quite a while?
Latest word I got from the contractor is they will start in January. It's about a 90-day project.
Okay, very good. Okay, we have a motion and a second, right?
Yes, we do.
We do. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you.
Item E3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with the Retail Coach LLC to update and continue implementation of the city's retail economic development plan in the amount of $35,000 and declaring an effective date.
Move we adopt E3.
Second.
A motion and a second. This is just year two of, we've worked with this group already.
And I've asked John to do an update. You'll see under the city manager report, there is an update about the retail study, but if he can do that now. We'd like to show you a video. They just returned from a conference last week, which we believe was very successful.
Right.
Thank you. Before I get to the resolution, I will give a little bit of an update. I'm not going to go back over the past timeline of this project, but I did tell you, because I did an update for you in August, but I did tell you in August that we would be attending the ICSC Texas Conference. ICSC is the International Council of Shopping Centers. That conference was in Dallas last week, Thursday and Friday. Had over 3,600 attendees there at the Dallas Convention Center. This is our second time to attend the Texas Conference, but it was the first time for us to have a booth in the exhibit hall. We were one of about 40 cities that were exhibiting in the show, which had a total of about 270, 280 exhibitors. Before I go on, I want to recognize O.C. Garza and Josh Garrett in the communications office. They created the graphics for banners that we used in our booth. They also produced a retail recruitment video that we're going to show you here in just a minute. And we had that video playing on a laptop there at our booth for when folks were coming by and taking a look. OC also attended the conference with Jared and me, which allowed us to keep the booth staffed when we were out meeting during the day. You should have in front of you a USB device the size and shape of a business card. It looks like this. The communications office also put this together for us. These memory cards contain the recruitment video, data from our retail study, and several other kind of marketing videos and quality of life videos from the CVB. And we use these as giveaways. We gave these cards away to the developers and retailers that we met during the time we were there in Dallas. We believe the conference was productive and that having our own booth at this conference was worthwhile. While we were there for a day and a half, almost 2 days, we met with 3 developers that are very interested in the Victoria market and made, I would say, 15 to 20 solid contacts during that time with retail developers, retailers, and restaurant representatives. One of the interesting and encouraging things that we observed during our time at that booth was the number of people that sought us out, developers, retailers, that sought us out because of the positive things they're hearing about the Victoria market. We were not having to go out and try to find developers and retailers in their booths. They were coming to us and visiting that Victoria booth. Several of the contacts that we made last week are actively looking for locations for sites in Victoria, and a few of them would already be here if we had existing spaces that met their site location criteria. Hopefully some of those folks will be making their plans public in the coming weeks and months. Now we want to show you the retail recruitment video, then I'll come back and briefly talk about the resolution if you have any questions.
Maybe even been to town. But if you've not studied the economic demographics of Victoria recently, please spend the next few minutes watching this film. Victoria is not only changing, it's changing right here, right now. Victoria, Texas offers a unique marketing opportunity for retailers, restaurants, and other businesses looking to expand into a rapidly growing market. What's so unique about Victoria's trade area? For one, if you study the trade area map, you'll notice that within a 60-mile radius, Victoria is the only major retail district in the 7-county area. It is also the medical hub, the education center, and the entertainment hotspot for this broad region. How fast is Victoria growing? We haven't been able to speak to anyone that was around when Victoria was founded in 1824, but Victoria may well be growing faster than at any other time in its long history. The current retail trade area population is more than 204,000 shoppers and is expected to grow to more than 216,000 shoppers by 2019. While Victoria boasts a permanent population of 65,000 residents, daytime traffic counts indicate more than 120,000 cars on Victoria streets every weekday. What's driving this growth? For one thing, oil and gas, and lots of it. The Eagle Ford Shale Formation lies just west of Victoria, and there are many more years left in this famous Texas oil play. And as you know, no industry pays its employees like the oil industry. Victoria is also actively recruiting industrial companies to the city. The recent construction of the new Caterpillar excavator plant in Victoria speaks well for increased retail demand. Caterpillar currently employs 500 people at the facility and expects to employ more than 800 when the plant is at full capacity. Other manufacturing companies, including Interplast, Formosa Plastics, Alcoa, DuPont, Invista, and Dow, have facilities located just outside Victoria and employ more than 8,000 workers with above-average wages. And every plant is looking to hire more employees. The medical community in Victoria is the regional healthcare hub for a 60-mile radius. This professional sector, anchored by 2 major hospitals and numerous clinics and private medical offices, employs more than 3,200 full-time workers earning above-average wages as medical professionals. Okay, you say, show me the hard evidence. Where are the growth results? How many homes, apartments, hotels are going up right now? How many building permits have been issued? We're glad you asked. By mid-2015, more than 1,650 new apartment units will have been built since 2011. More than 660 new hotel rooms have been added, and a few more hotels are still looking at possible construction in town. Since 2012, 326 new homes have been built, and the city has issued more than $348 million in residential and commercial construction permits. Another growing sector in the Victoria economy is higher education. With the University of Houston at Victoria expanding to a full 4-year university, it's the perfect match for the community college in town, Victoria College. Between the 2 campuses are more than 5,500 students with retail needs, and quite a few of them are looking for part-time work. Closely tied to higher education is the new Emerging Technology Complex under construction by the Victoria College. This state-of-the-art facility not only offers specialized training facilities for industrial plants and other companies, but attached to it is a conference center that will accommodate conferences with up to 400 attendees. All of Victoria's economic indicators are approaching record highs. With a workforce of nearly 50,000, unemployment in Victoria is a very low 4.2%. Sales taxes have jumped from $12 million in 2009 to $17.6 million in 2014. Hotel tax collections are also on the rise from $1 million in 2009 to more than $2 million in 2014. The average household income has increased to $61,526 per home. This growth results in an enviable retail environment. With a retail trade area population of 204,000, retail sales in Victoria are now at $1.58 billion. But there is a retail leakage of another $1.1 billion in sales each year, and that presents opportunities to retailers looking for a new market or to compete against existing retailers. The Victoria retail economy is booming. If your company is searching for a location in a new and thriving retail market, contact John Kaminsky, 361-485-3030, or send him an email at jkaminsky@victoriatx.org. He will be happy to explore all the opportunities that Victoria can offer your company right here, right now.
be glad to answer any questions that you might have before we move on to the resolution before you tonight.
The extension of this contract for the additional $35,000, what are we going to actually gain from if they've already done all their studies and all their?
Several things. One is they will update the data, which every year we get they have access to new demographic data, the retail coach, that will be made available to us. It's just coming out about this time of the year. So the first thing they'll do is they'll update our trade area boundary based on the new demographic data and additional license plate surveys. They'll update that entire demographic profile, and then they'll also run an updated gap and opportunity analysis. So again, an updated leakage analysis to see how much retail is continuing to leak out toward other markets from Victoria. In addition, and probably most importantly, they'll help with continue the ongoing retail recruitment. The hands-on sending out of packets they'll continue to update the match lists of developers and retailers that match our market with the type of sites that they need or the demographics that they need in order to locate. Then as they identify those additional retailers, they'll continue to reach out to them with our packets, our feasibility packets for another year. That service was not provided in our original contract for another additional year. That's what we're paying for with this $35,000.
John, one important comment to make is they have relationships. This company has relationships with retail companies and developers, and so that takes years to develop, and we're behind the curve in developing those relationships, and I think that's a big positive of this group helping us too.
Let me ask you a question, John.
Yes, sir.
So far from what we've expended, how much have we spent altogether on this project?
The initial contract was for a total spent was just under $52,000.
Are there any tangible results we can show for at the present time?
I think the results are with the contacts that we have and the continued contacts that we're receiving from retailers wanting to get into our market. I would say that the great majority of the folks that we met in Dallas last week were people that the retail coach has reached out to with our data and made them aware of our market. Other people that they have relationships with that they're doing business with in other markets. So, yeah, I mean, primarily it's having that access to people, the contacts from those retailers. They're starting to call us, and to me, right now that's all we can say. Nobody has come here and built a building yet and said we did this because of your study. They're looking at us. We're on their radar, whereas a year ago they didn't know where Victoria, Texas was.
We haven't actually had anybody come down to see Victoria from this.
Oh, absolutely. We've had people come see Victoria.
Okay.
We don't have a business that's opened so far. We expect to hear some announcements fairly soon, but we don't have anybody that's opened yet. But oh yes, we've had people visit Victoria. We talked to several last week that we didn't even know they were in Victoria looking, and they were. They're already looking at sites, and I mentioned earlier. A few of those indicated very clearly that if there was already a space here that met their criteria, they'd be in our market because it's a market they're looking for. So there's a couple things. We need those retailers to come here. We need developers to create the space for them to move into. So some of them are not going to come build a building on their own. They're looking for a space to move into, and our occupancies in retail spaces are pretty high. Our occupancy rates are pretty high. There's not a lot of vacant space out there.
And that's one of the things Aaron helped us with too, is contacting those developers.
Right.
So he's not just contacting the retailers, he's also reaching out to the developers and saying, and I know there's been some site visits from developers that have looked at pieces of properties. They've contacted us about places. So,
Mr. Halfpass.
Yes, I'd like to make a couple of comments. We bought land out there for the industrial park. 10 years later, something finally came. We put out a lot more than this per year for Victoria Economic Development Corporation. And we believe that we can attract more retail just for the simple fact if 100,000 people is their cutoff point, they see 65,000 people, they don't even take another look. We think we can attract them. Overnight, no. We're going to have a little bit of faith. But the amount of money we're spending on retail in comparison to what we spend on things such as trying to get Caterpillar and that industrial land out there, this is much, much less.
My thought would be this. We spent some money, we found out some information, hopefully it was valuable, but we don't have anything per se to show for it yet. And, to continue, to me, I feel like if, we're a nice community, we've got a lot of assets. For the most part, I think if a retailer thinks there's money to be made, they're going to go to a certain community. And I'm a little reluctant to keep spending money on the same company in hopes that they're going to attract a retailer. And of course, retailers don't provide, they provide very, typically minimum wage jobs. It's not like these are jobs you can support a family on, and we're going to continue to pay this company to search out those type of jobs for our community. I have a little hesitancy to continue to support it.
I would respectfully a little bit disagree. Those retailers bring sales tax to our community. Retailers bring increased quality of life to our community. And I think that those are very, very important parts of being Victoria citizens. And that's what they're clamoring for if you read the comments in the paper. And so I think that this is a wise investment. These multi-million-dollar companies aren't going to jump in and 2 months later and establish a building in Victoria. That's unrealistic to believe that. It's going to take time to develop relationships. It's going to take time to develop places for their businesses. I think that we need to give a chance and let this run its course. And I think that all of a sudden these benefits will come to us.
I feel comfortable just cutting off the spigot.
It's, the environment's changed slightly. I mean, these retailers, I think even in the 90s, tended to kind of look at what their competitors were doing. You ever notice where AutoZone and O'Reilly are always right across the street, and CVS and Walgreens, and they still do that. And I was actually employed by one of those in the early 90s. But what's changed is they've outsourced the site locators. And Retail Coach is the expert in the data and the demographics, exactly what they're doing. So they lean more heavily on Retail Coach to say, where should we be? We don't want to try to figure it out. You go figure it out for us. Because obviously there's economies of scale with that company. If they know what's good for CVS, they also know what's good for Walgreens or anybody else. So it's very common. I was actually surprised when I did a little reading into it that this is how it's done now in 2014. So, and with $17 million in sales tax, which is, we know, variable. That can go back down, but our budget is very well prepared to handle that. I mean, I remember not too long ago we had some dips in sales tax, but with that amount, spending $35,000 to help ensure the health of that revenue stream doesn't seem bad. I think, Mr. Young, you made some good points. There are a lot of people who, why doesn't the city do this? Why doesn't the city do that? If I hear about a Cracker Barrel one more time, I'm probably going to, But the point is, we don't develop. We don't bring businesses. We're not the developer. The businesses are. There's a misconception, especially among the young group, that the city does this. We don't do it. Private people do it. They get private property and they build it. We don't. We just try to facilitate it a little and stay out of the way, which is what, in my opinion, we should do. So this is just to get out there and say, by the way, guys, all you out in the country and the rest of the country, we do have a sustainable market here, so take a second look. It's to try to be responsive to that. And if you were part of the 2020 plan, which of course that's next, back then, that was a big thing to the focus groups we had. They wanted these new retail opportunities. And, we had to say, well, we don't go open a Cracker Barrel, but we have to find a way to tell Cracker Barrel we have people here that want them here. This is how we do that. So, anyway.
Quickly, two items to put on emphasis. Again, an outlet mall and what the feasibility of that is, John. And also, let's not forget the change that we already have here. We're seeing some of those open up a second store. Let's not overlook some of the other ones. I'd like to have a Chick-fil-A over here on the south side. Just
Here, here.
I can tell you Jared has already made that suggestion.
Over and over again.
Well, and again, you're exactly right, but a company like Chick-fil-A is going to say, show me the demographics of that area, and
They're
that's
gonna
what
need the
we'll
data.
get with this. It's very simple. We're not going to do it in-house, are we? Maybe in the future, we might grow to that. That's something we can talk about later, but let's get started now.
My emphasis, though, is don't forget what we have already here. Let's talk to them, too. And because, a local manager could make a difference between, the third or the fifth discount tire,
Well, and I would like to point out that this information is available to everyone, including local businesses that could use those demographics to do expansions, as you mentioned. It's not just for outside people.
Maybe
That's a good point,
inviting those businesses to a seminar and showing them that data, so their niches may need to be tweaked a little bit, locally speaking.
And we did that last year when we got the first data back, and we can sure do it again this next year.
Yeah, when we get the updated demographics.
So we did it.
And keep in mind, retailers have, strange hours, and it's not conventional, so we may have to go to them, so to speak.
And it's online. I think we've got it all online.
Absolutely.
One reminder, too, is this is being paid for by sales tax and not property tax.
Thank you. Separate sales tax corporation.
Yeah, the separate
right.
sales tax corp and not the general fund money.
Okay. Don't want to cut anybody off? Is that all? Anyone have anything else on E3? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. Okay, thank you. That passes. We'll move to E4.
E4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with the Golden Crescent Habitat for Humanity to grant $22,500 in community development block grant funds and real property located at 3506, 3508, and 3509 Swan Drive in exchange for their agreement to construct at least 3 single-family housing units on those properties and then transfer ownership to those units to low-income households in accordance with the regulations of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and declaring an effective date.
Move we adopt.
That was already a motion from last time.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that's correct. This was moved from the prior meeting where we already had a motion and a second. Thank you for the reminder, Mr.
So
Alvarez.
let's just have discussion, if any.
Did we not discuss that there was going to be a cap of number of properties that were going to go to Habitat at Swan Crossing, or that was never?
I don't remember that, but maybe Jared would.
We never had direction to create a cap. It's up to council whether or not you want to continue to.
How many undeveloped lots do we still have out there, roughly?
Quite a few. We've got 25 lots, I believe, as of today.
Undeveloped?
Undeveloped and uncommitted. There are some lots that, let me rephrase that. There are 25 lots remaining that are within the city's hands. There are some lots that are already in the builder's hands, not Habitat, but Rokita that's building the other homes. So there are several of those that are in his hands today that don't have homes on them, but should be starting soon. We've got 25 lots remaining.
Okay, according to the CAD, there's 33. Is that wrong?
Well, their records are usually lagging a little behind. We've done several, as Thomas can contest, we've done several lots,
Okay, 'cause
transactions
there's a
recently.
total of 55 lots out there.
Yes, ma'am.
And so we have 16 completed houses, or you have 23?
There's 16 completed houses, I believe. You've got 10 or 8 completed Habitat houses and 2 more under construction. And by my calculations, based on the contracts that we've established with the builder and or potential homeowners, we have 25 lots remaining.
Because I see that we have 3 for Habitat that's still not built, and the 3 that the construction guy has, 33 that are ours, 55 total, and only 16 complete.
Right, and my count of 25 doesn't include the 3 that are proposed to be given to Habitat tonight. There's still some lots that aren't showing up by the appraisal district that we've recently, within the last month or 2, sold. Their records lag behind.
Okay, and you sold those to private owners?
Yes, to private homeowners.
So you would say about 7 more?
I'm getting lost here.
I don't think it's 7 more. My math when I say
But
there's
you said
25 lots.
26, so 26 from 33 is 7. So then you have 7 complete, 7 that are in between, 16 complete, because we have a total of 55 out there.
Yes.
Okay. So you said we've got 7 on the records, because you only have 23 that still belong to the city. And there's 33 empty lots according to the CAD.
Right, and the CAD is not up to date.
I understand. So
Okay.
you said 7. So then that makes 23 that are complete or already given out. Not including Habitat, because Habitat has 3 left. And the 3 that are for the construction guy.
I don't follow your math,
Okay,
I'm
well,
sorry.
I've got it, but I would like to make a cap. I'd like to make a motion for a cap out there of the number of Habitat homes that we have. I think that we need to have Habitat homes in all the districts, not just in mine. I have 87% of the houses from Habitat are in my district. I have nothing against them, but I think that we should have an equal share amongst all the districts. There is a federal law that says that you should have fair housing in all the districts, not just in District 2. And that's what I'm proposing.
Okay, so that's a motion now. I don't want to, there would need to be a second, but since we have the original motion, I suppose we can discuss any
Thank you.
aspect of it. And I want to.
That's right. I think we should take up the amendment before we move on to any other discussion. I'd like clarification about what Ms. Solis is proposing in her amendment so that I can be sure that we get it recorded correctly and that everyone understands exactly what they're voting on or what they are considering seconding. This would be a motion to amend this resolution to do what?
To limit the number of houses in Habitat and limit it to the 10 that we have.
To limit the number of Habitat homes within Swan Crossing?
Yes, sir.
Within Swan Crossing
To
to
10.
10.
And that's what we have right now.
And that's what we have right now. And by doing so, that would mean that these 3 lots could not be transferred to
Right.
Habitat. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. I think we understand the amendment now.
Okay, so there's, go ahead.
Before we do that, can I get a little bit of information in regarding the subdivision itself?
You can.
Okay, I just,
Opening-
before we vote on something, I
Yeah,
just,
yeah, yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt.
As we saw at a recent council meeting, a discussion on a motion serves as a second to that motion. So that would be a second to the amendment.
That's fine.
All right.
So you're seconding her amendment, Ms. Solis's.
And that puts it on the floor for discussion. That's all that does. Go ahead, I'm sorry. I hate being the
So we
procedural
have a
police, but
motion.
somebody's got to.
We have a motion and a second on the amendment, which is to cap it at 10. And now we can have discussion. Would you like to go first, Mr. Young?
Jared, what was the initial intent of the subdivision Swan Crossing? And when was it established? Tell me a little history behind it. I wasn't here for that, so.
The concept of the subdivision, I guess, was batted around for 2 or 3 years before we commenced. I guess construction got started in 2006, was completed in, I believe, early 2007, and sometime in 2007, the first 3 houses were started under construction. The intent was to create affordable housing, to create affordable lots. So I think that's the simplest way to tell you what the intent of the subdivision was. And a subsequent program was created to try to partner with a builder that would build the homes for potential home buyers, and then sell the homes to the newly built homes to the home buyer. There's a couple of different programs that we have to help with that. If you since 75% of the subdivision was built with community development block grant, we've got to sell 75% of those lots to low-income homeowners that meet HUD income guidelines. So if a homeowner meets the income guideline, they're able to get the lot through a 5-year deferred forgivable loan, which basically means if they live in it and keep it as their primary residence, keep it as a homestead for 5 years, that basically they get that lot at no cost to them. And so the only mortgage they're carrying is the actual cost to build, to buy the structure itself, the improvement itself.
So there was government money tied to that.
Absolutely.
But it was affordable housing, that was the intent.
Sure. And in my humble opinion, Habitat and the Swan Crossing homes are both affordable housing.
And the Swan Crossing, for just more perspective, I never was a big fan of it. I didn't think the city should be in the housing, business. I still don't. That was evidenced by the very slow efforts we had out there, the bureaucracy, and the window for income eligibility was so narrow, no one could hardly qualify. And it was just a mess. So I say mess because the taxpayers were paying for a street and a road and utilities and then mowing and keeping it up for a bunch of empty lots. It couldn't work. That's the bureaucracy of it, of the HUD guidelines. So in my opinion, Habitat provided a very, they're a private entity for the most part, and they move quicker and they can do things. They're not hamstringed by those HUD guidelines. So they were offered a solution for us to get that neighborhood filled out and productive and whatnot. So I have this question: what's wrong with Habitat? I haven't heard an answer.
Nothing. It's
Why,
not that
why
it's
limit
wrong.
them?
No, I'm not saying that limit them. I'm just saying spread them out all over the city. Why does it have to?
You want
No,
to
no.
limit to 10 homes in Swan Crossing. Why?
Because you already have 87% of those the Habitat homes in my district. What's wrong with moving them to other areas of town?
Well, now, I don't speak for Habitat, but from my understanding of it, is it's based upon lot cost and economics. A lot out in Bridle Ridge is not feasible for one of those because of the cost of the lot, et cetera. So they go into areas, and it's really what I've seen the most success is the neighborhood I grew up in, where it's almost all rentals. And there were lots that now you have these little Habitat homes that are just bright spots because they own the home, and it just makes such a difference. They tend to be in areas where affordable housing, where it's more affordable for them. They're here. They didn't come tonight because of this issue. They came for another reason. But I still haven't heard an answer. I mean, I understand the issue of spreading them out, but that's not part of your motion. Your motion is to limit Swan Crossing, and why?
Yeah, because he
What's
said it
wrong
had
with-
to come with the city council, had to decide whether we wanted to limit them or not.
Yes.
That's why I made the motion. But
Okay.
I'm saying that, yes, I've got nothing against Habitat. Let's just put them somewhere where, let's move them around. Why do you want to put them all there? Just because they're feasible? And let's give it to them because we made a mistake in buying the property? The city was the one that made the error in buying the property and using CDBG funds, and now they can't move those houses. The properties, I mean.
So you believe the city made a mistake in?
Yes, sir,
building-
you said it yourself just now.
No, that's my opinion. You
Well,
share my opinion.
I'm just agreeing with you then.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine. When I go out there, I can't tell the difference between a Habitat house or any other house. They look all similar in quality and et cetera. I just don't see the problem here.
All
I
the
can't-
homes in Swan Crossing follow the same basic minimum guidelines, deed restrictions that we set out from the very beginning. Habitat homes have the 1.5 car garage, follow similar standards. Habitat will argue with you that they exceed those. Their homes are built to an Energy Star rating, which is higher than the city's minimum requirement. So we've had some retired building inspectors used to comment that the Habitat houses were some of the most well-built houses in Victoria. But
It just seems to me that it's an awesome solution to trying to fill that neighborhood out. I can't see why not. I'm struggling. I don't counsel you.
Well, and I'm trying to remember that the original goal of Swan Crossing was to have affordable housing for people that wanted it. And I'm trying to understand why we're against affordable housing now.
I'm not against affordable housing. I'm just saying that, you bought that property because, y'all voted on it. I wasn't here when they
affordable
voted on
housing.
it, okay? And, I think that probably what's happened is that the requirements are so stringent that you haven't gotten anybody to qualify. And they're not all HUD requirements. I think they're internal requirements. Everything is HUD required on those?
the other thing that's internal is perhaps some of the requirement to have a garage is not a HUD requirement, but the income guidelines and all of that does narrow the market, that is absolutely 100% a HUD requirement.
Now, if you had not used HUD money, you wouldn't have to have those requirements?
That's correct. He who has the money makes the rules.
I mean, we spent about
That's the way
$2
it
million
works
on the road and the pipes back in '07, a little under $2 million.
Oh, no. Gosh.
Was that HUD?
700,000 or something? 825,000.
Oh, I stand corrected.
That included the purchase of the land and,
Was that the HUD, the annual HUD allotment, which I know used to be quite a bit? That was not? I thought, what was the source of that? Do y'all remember?
do what? That was the total, 825,000 was the total development cost.
Okay.
Purchase the land and build the streets, all that. If you're asking what our annual entitlement was at that
No.
point, okay.
No.
Sorry.
I understand. So was there any local money involved in that, 800? There was local property taxes, so local people paid for that street, and then, like Mr. Hill, he got a free lot out of it. He didn't pay for his lot. There's nothing wrong with that. That was the intention of it. But we can't, the HUD guidelines just tie it all up. It doesn't work. And I think the city partnering with Habitat is a much more effective way of offering affordable housing. I think it's working great. So I do not want to cap them in Swan Crossing. I have not heard a good reason why not.
Quickly, how many percentage of those lots have to go to low to moderate income?
Sorry, I don't remember the percentage. But I can tell you 17 out of the 55
For sure.
do not have to be low income.
Just
Do the math real quick of that. But there's 17 lots. We were able, because not all of the infrastructure was built with HUD money, we were able to obtain a waiver that allowed the city to exempt 17 of those lots. We've sold, I think, maybe 4 lots that are over.
If there's going to ever be a cap, it's going to be that difference.
The 38?
It'll be 38.
So there's a potential of putting 38 Habitat homes out there?
Well, I don't think we've got that many lots left, but there's a potential to have 38 homes out there. There's a requirement to have 38 homes out there that are affordable and meet the HUD income guidelines at the time that the house is built. So yes, ma'am.
Subsidized. Yeah. Okay. Now, we're missing 2 council members, unfortunately, but we have an amendment. Y'all would like to, we can vote on the amendment and then talk about the issue as a whole. Is there any further discussion? What do we need here to pass this, since there's missing?
A majority of those voting, so that
So
would be
3.
3 out of 5.
Okay, just for clarification. Any further discussion on the amendment to limit the number of homes Habitat can build in Swan Crossing? No further discussion. All those in favor of that amendment say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so that amendment fails. Now we're back to this item. And I know the councilman who actually tabled it last time was not here now, again. So any further discussion on E4 as a whole? We still need the 3 out of 5 since we're missing 2 to pass it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Alvarez, you.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone this one more time and get everybody here. I need to study this some more, basically. If I could buy some more time, I would appreciate that.
I don't have a problem with that. I would suggest we not postpone it again. Hopefully, the December 4th meeting would all be here. But I don't think it's holding up anyone, is it? We're not holding up Habitat or anybody. They just happen to be here. I'm glad they're here.
They do need them by the end of December, by the end of the year.
Okay, well, counsel, those of you that are here, we can surely wrap this up in December. I'm asking, so.
I'd sooner just go ahead with it, but if you want to, I'll acquiesce. I'd sooner get it done.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll table it again, and on
Postpone.
December 4th, we'll still have a motion ready.
December 2nd.
December 2nd,
December
thank you.
2nd.
Are we all squared away, Mr. Attorney?
Right. Let's have a, I'd have to grab I'm not hearing anyone object to the motion to table. I think officially under Robert's rules, we have to have a vote to table it, but I'm not seeing any opposition to that, and so by acclamation.
Well, we just postponing it one more time?
That's right. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I think
is-
no action at all leaves it on the table.
Yeah,
It has a
right,
motion
we're
and a
just
second.
postponing it, please.
Postponing it to December 2nd.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayfield. E5.
E5 is a resolution granting a variance to Section 21-64 of the Victoria City Code relating to the subdivision and development, which requires that new structures not encroach into the minimum setback lines to allow construction of a veranda and portico on property at 2505 Houston Highway owned by Twin Fountains Properties, LLC, and declaring an effective date.
Second.
Thank you. Make sure everybody's awake here now. We have a motion and a second for E5. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to amend it within the information. I saw that the Planning Commission had recommended with some changes. Wasn't that
What page
they
you on?
switched? Was that the one? Wasn't there one? Wasn't there a contingency if it changed? Was that the one? Did I write it on the wrong one?
Jared, can you?
Sure. There was a condition on this one that the setback variance apply to the existing structure and proposed improvements only. So if for some reason at some point the property was redeveloped and the existing structure was demolished, that the new structure would comply with the platted building line.
Do we need to make amendment for that?
No, this is, hang on, let me check the resolution right quick.
For the public, this is is it Trevino's? Was it Trevino's restaurant?
Yes,
Former Siesta restaurant.
Right, Mr. Trevino, yeah, so.
And according to these notes too, don't let Twin Fountains, I thought they were going to put a Twin Fountains Clinic. They're going to reopen it as a restaurant under a new name.
There's two, yeah, there's something else that's Twin Fountains. It's another variance, your next
Right.
one.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4, we have 3 variances.
You have 3 variances.
McNeil,
tonight.
doesn't McNeil own all the Twin Fountain clinics or?
Yes, sir.
or-
That's
This
the
one-
putt-putt variance.
This resolution, E3, is to return it to a restaurant.
E5.
E5, sorry. Yes, sir.
Yes.
There's no physical changes at all. This is normal. It's just the setback encroaches on the overhang to the front door, and they want to open back up. That
They're
road
gonna
is not
add
going
a-
to be expanded. Nothing's going to change for years. It's,
They are adding a front porch that's
okay,
what
which
is
will stick
triggering
out a
this.
little, yeah.
So it'll stick out a little bit, and I believe there's a plan to extend into the back, to add on to the restaurant in the back. That's what's triggered all of this. Is it triggered the additions or what triggered the platting and
Okay.
And to answer
And
Dr.
it is-
Young's question, because of the way the resolution is written, we do need an amendment to include that condition, that this only apply to the existing structure and the added portico as described, rather than being a permanent variance for the property.
So you'll need an amendment and a second to the motion?
I'd like to make an amendment to adopt with the changes that these conditions apply only to the structure and the proposed improvements only.
Second.
Motion and second. So that's an amendment to E5. Is there discussion on that? Everyone understands it. So all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so the amendment passes. Now we have a motion and second on E5 itself. Any more discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, E5 passes. E6.
E6 is a resolution granting a variance to Section 21-54B2 of the City of Victoria Code relating to subdivision and development, which requires a dedication of 1/2 of the right-of-way necessary to bring a street into conformance with the applicable street classification for Victoria Putt-Putt subdivision owned by John McNeil, and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion to adopt E6.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion? Very similar issue. I don't think we're going to widen Sam Houston anytime soon, so it doesn't really affect anything. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that passes.
E7 is a resolution granting a variance to Section 20-82A1 of the Victoria City Code related to streets, sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, which allows only one driveway per residential lot for each local street on which it fronts, for a property at 608 West San Antonio and 904 Craig Street, owned by Torin Bales, and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion to adopt E7.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Thank you, council. Let's see, we have E8 now.
E8 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to purchase two Lucas 2 2.2 chest compression system machines and all accessories from Physio Control Incorporated of Redmond, Washington, in the amount of $29,264.35 and declaring an effective date.
We adopt E8.
Motion and second. Any questions, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you.
May I make a point? I thought the chief might get up, but to recognize the MG and Lily Johnson Foundation for awarding this grant to us to allow us to purchase these two Lucas. So, did
Tell us what they
I
are.
say that okay?
I think I missed the question.
I said, I think we need to recognize the foundation for giving us the money for the grant.
Yeah, absolutely. They're funding these 100%, and we're excited to have them. We were able to purchase one through our normal budgeting process, and now with this grant, we've acquired 3 additional. So we have 4. We'll have 4 total after this purchase.
Chief, what do they do again?
I was going to say, let's remind.
They do CPR. They're manual CPR devices that attach to a person's body, and we'll go with them wherever as we move them from location to location without interrupting CPR, which when you're doing it manually, it's very labor intensive, and you have to stop during certain times as you move the person around, and this is uninterrupted CPR.
And the goal is to have one on every ambulance.
Yep.
This gives us 4 now.
Gives us 4 of 6.
So if there's anybody out there that would like to
We need 2 more.
make a donation to.
Any more grants, we'll
2 more.
We'll certainly write them.
We'll love to have it.
So they're about $15,000 a piece. It's pretty expensive, but
They're expensive.
could save a life. So, very good. Well, I thank you for mentioning that, the MG Lilly Foundation. That's very generous of them, so thank you, Chief. Okay, we have a motion and second.
You voted already.
We voted? Oh,
We're good.
I'm sorry. It's
Okay.
E9.
E9 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an oversized infrastructure construction reimbursement agreement with Salem Crossing Limited of Victoria, Texas, for the oversizing of approximately 2,362 linear feet of sanitary sewer line in the amount of $255,700 and declaring an effective date.
Move we adopt E9.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Is there any questions? A very smart thing to do. Thank you, staff, for doing this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so we have some city manager reports. We did a few already. We'll go ahead and, Mr. Short?
No, yeah. Lynn's going to talk about the letting schedule for the current budget year.
What's being handed out to you is the proposed letting schedule for all of the capital improvement projects that we'll be trying to get designed, bid, awarded, and begin construction on during fiscal year 2015. Shows the project name, an estimated amount, thank you, for the construction of that project, who's designing it, who's doing the surveying, and then some tentative dates or planned dates for bidding, awarding, and beginning construction. And also it shows the funding sources for these projects. This is serves as a good tool for us, for staff, to keep us on target with these, and hopefully it'll serve as a good tool for you to answer any questions you might have regarding, when is this project supposed to kick off. Certainly, if you have questions now, I'll be happy to answer them. But also, if you have questions after you've had more time to review it, don't hesitate to let me know, and I'll be happy to try to address those.
How's the storm sewer cleaning going here?
It is.
That's not what I'll guess. I'm thinking of the street sweepers. That's not on here.
Street sweeping has, as you mentioned, street sweeping has begun. Very, very heavy debris, of course, on state highways right now. That's all that's being done is state highways, probably through next week. Of course, we'll have to see what the rain does. The rain kind of inhibits that process. And then we'll be moving on to some arterials, but it is ongoing.
Yeah, I apologize. That's not part of this list, but it was on my mind when I saw the storm sewer cleaning.
I think we do storm sewer next time, don't we, Lynn?
Well, we are doing some storm sewer cleaning now, and there's some in this 2015.
Yeah, Mayfair
At the
edition.
bottom right there. And it's going well too, what we've got currently going. The 2015 one won't happen until later, like March. Excuse me, we'll open bids in March.
See the 463 Business 59 traffic signal that we voted on about 12 times.
That
was a little complicated issue.
We'll actually
but
open bids on that next Monday.
$380,000 estimate. I sure hope you come in under that. That's
I do too.
the expensive traffic light. Yeah.
It's needed.
Yeah.
Are you sure this time?
Very good. Council, did y'all have anything?
Lucy in the football.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to what I find interesting about the landfill.
I think Daryl's going to introduce the folks from Republic to present a concept. Our goal tonight is, after you've listened to the concept, to see if council is in agreement to let us continue our due diligence on whether we wish to move forward with it.
Good evening. Charmel's right. I am going to introduce a couple of people. One is Robert Bradley from Republic Waste Services. He's the area GM. He's over our landfill currently. Also, I'm going to introduce, come on up, guys.
Y'all can sit behind. I think there's some seats there maybe.
I'm also going to introduce Kyle Gould. Kyle Gould's the engineer. He works for Republic, but he's also at this time working for us. He's the engineer that we hired through Weaver Booz to do our closure project at the landfill. And so I set a package in front of each of you before the meeting, and they're going to go through this real quick and talk about kind of what the difference is between our current landfill and what changes we would have to make in order to be a Class 1 facility, and kind of how that would work, a timeline, and where we would expect to see and what type of waste we would expect to see. It's important to remember that this is still, even though it's a Class 1, it is still non-hazardous waste. We're not talking about nuclear waste or anything like that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kyle. He's going to start.
Let me make that real clear. This is non-hazardous waste.
Non-hazardous waste. I can't say that enough.
All right.
Again, my name's Kyle Gould. I work for Weaver Booz Consultants out of Fort Worth, Texas. We've been the permitting, design, and construction engineer off and on over the last 10 years out at the landfill. So we're relatively familiar with what goes on out there, and like Daryl said, we're completing the closure project right now. What I'd like to do is just go over some information regarding a proposed Class 1 limited scope major amendment for the City of Victoria landfill. And I'll start by summarizing some of the wastes that are currently accepted at the landfill. Major 3 wastes are municipal solid waste, special waste, and industrial waste. Municipal solid waste being what you generate out of your household. Special waste being things like dead animals, asbestos-containing materials, and certain types of empty containers. And industrial waste really pertains to any waste coming from an industrial facility that is not hazardous. Currently, the landfill is required to construct Subtitle D compliant liner and final cover systems. These are composite liner and final cover systems. And there's a graphic within the handouts there and up on the screen that the liner system currently consists of a 2-foot compacted clay liner overlain by a 60 mil HDPE geomembrane, a drainage geocomposite, and a 2-foot protective cover layer. Similarly, the final cover system that goes on at the end is a 1.5 foot of compacted clay liner, a 40 mil LLDP geomembrane, a drainage geocomposite, and a 2-foot erosion layer. I'm going to hit a couple of points here about the Class 1 waste, and I won't go through everything. I won't read every single sentence, but if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. But as already been stated, Class 1 waste is a non-hazardous industrial waste, and it typically consists of loyal soils that contain relatively low levels of hydrocarbons. It's anticipated that the Class 1 waste that will be accepted of the landfill will mainly consist of drilling mud that is generated as part of the oil and gas drilling process. The drilling mud is typically a mixture of clay and water or oil used in the drilling operations to carry rock cuttings to the surface and to lubricate the drilling bit. Other types of Class 1 waste, non-hazardous, that you could take at the landfill would be contaminated soils from spill cleanup events, if a tanker truck were to tip over on the highway, or a site cleanup effort. Republic's been accepting and managing non-hazardous Class 1 waste over 10 years at landfill facilities throughout Texas. The non-hazardous Class 1 waste that will be accepted will require pre-characterization by the generator, and that will be reviewed by Republic's Special Waste Department and approved prior to acceptance. All of the Class 1 waste that crosses the scale will be visually inspected, monitored for radiation, and will be monitored during disposal by equipment operators. Republic also conducts daily random inspections. That is a more detailed inspection for waste that crosses the scales, and that's done at a minimum of once per day. The non-hazardous Class 1 waste that will be accepted at the landfill will be commingled with the MSW in the same disposal cell, provided that that disposal cell is constructed with a Class 1 liner system, which we'll discuss in just a second. Texas is the only state that is more restrictive with non-hazardous Class 1 waste, as other states allow this type of waste to be deposited in a cell with an MSW-compliant liner system. Texas does require additional liner and final cover systems, additional liner and final cover system requirements for non-hazardous Class 1 waste disposal areas, and also provides for a 4-foot thick clay barrier layer above the Class 1 waste once the final Class 1 waste has been deposited. Commingling of the non-hazardous Class 1 waste into the MSW will add additional moisture to the waste, thus possibly increasing the LFG generation. And it should be noted that by rule, non-hazardous Class 1 waste can only account for 20% of waste that crosses the scale, so it's unlikely that the overall waste composition of the facility will change significantly. This slide provides you with a comparison of the typical liner system and the Class 1 liner system. As you can see, there's a 3-foot compacted clay liner in lieu of the 2-foot liner, and from there up, the liner systems remain the same with the geomembrane, drainage geocomposite, and protective cover layer. Similarly, with the final cover system comparison, all of the components above the compacted clay liner are the same, but the compacted clay liner is increased from 1.5 feet to 4 feet. Around the perimeter of the Class 1 waste area, if Class 1 waste is placed above grade, which is anticipated at the facility, we will construct Class 1 containment dikes along the exterior slopes. They will provide an additional Class 1 waste barrier as they're along the exterior slope, and they will be constructed as part of site operations from clay-rich soils. They will be approximately 10 feet high with a minimum crest width of 17 feet, effectively making a 4-foot barrier between Class 1 waste and the final cover system. They'll be located over the Class 1 lined area, and they'll be certified by a Texas licensed professional engineer. There are the potential for several infrastructure improvements when taking non-hazardous Class 1 waste. Some of the non-hazardous Class 1 waste that will be taken will have to pass what's called a paint filter test. There will be some facilities that will be needed to be constructed at the landfill in order to do so. These facilities do require TCEQ and or Railroad Commission authorization, and some of the facilities listed there, liquid waste bulking facility, as staging and treatment areas, evaporation ponds, and centrifuges. As I stated, the acceptance of Class 1 waste and the construction of these facilities will require Texas Commission on Environmental Quality and Railroad Commission permitting. The acceptance of the actual non-hazardous Class 1 waste will require a limited scope major amendment to be submitted, reviewed, and approved by the TCEQ. That process generally takes between 9 and 12 months, depending on the reviewer and any questions that they have during review of the application. The Railroad Commission permit will be submitted to authorize the facilities that are not covered by the TCQ permit, which would be these facilities, the staging and treatment areas, evaporation ponds, and centrifuges. They will review that, and that usually takes about 3 to 6 months, and it will be done concurrently with the TCQ review. So just in summary, the Class 1 waste is a non-hazardous industrial waste typically generated from the oil and gas drilling process. Non-hazardous Class 1 waste will be commingled with MSW in a disposal area with a Class 1 liner system. Republic's been accepting and managing these types of waste for several years and employs multiple methods of waste screening prior to disposal. A thicker liner system and final cover system will be used in addition to a barrier layer as required by the TCQ for these areas, and the containment dikes will be constructed around the perimeter of the area if above grade fill is placed. There will be the possibility of several infrastructure improvements, and they will be authorized by the TCQ and the Railroad Commission. The acceptance of the non-hazardous Class 1 waste and all the infrastructure improvements will be authorized by one of those two state agencies.
So what do we, tell us what we're looking at here.
We're,
I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. I mean.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Actually,
Questions about this?
Bob Bradley's going to cover that.
Okay.
That's some information that they've got on where that we're going to receive some of these items from.
Okay, Mr. Chilpass.
Yes, sir.
Yes, the bentonite, it has the highest coefficient of expansion of anything I know of. I've dealt with it directly and indirectly. It can move a house 36 inches.
You don't, I thought you can say you put it in your
Black
cookies or,
gumbo.
you don't, okay, sorry. You're not putting it in.
Is there any stabilization methods that you would use on bentonite?
Whenever some of the drilling cuttings that are brought in, that's what the liquid waste bulking facility or a stabilization area or centrifuge would be used for. Liquid waste bulking facilities when you would add a solidification agent to it so that it would pass the paint filter test before it is deposited into the landfill. In a process as a centrifuge, I don't know, I assume some of you are familiar with the concept. Basically, it separates the solids from the liquids to where the liquids are either disposed of. Usually what they do is they take them and they reprocess everything together, and they take the solids and they take them and they dispose them in a landfill. But there's also utilization of evaporation pits and things like that too. So there's several ways to basically separate the liquid and the solids for disposal.
Hi, my name's Bob Bradley. I'm the General Manager for Republic Services. I think you've got a few more pages in your packet that I don't have a slideshow for you, but basically what those cover is, I think there's a rig map in there, basically showing where the active rigs are right now in the area. And there's also a permit heat map which shows where permits are being filled to drill new wells, and that's the red that you'll see on that other map. And then there's a lease map which shows where drilling companies are leasing land, and that's land that they're buying leases, and those are to be drilled within the next 3 years. So you can see where the movement is from the little southwest to northeast, actually closer and closer to Victoria and the landfill here. And Republic basically thought, well, this is an opportunity for Victoria and for the company to maybe capture some of that waste. If you go to the last page, you're going to see Class 1 wastes that are already generated from local companies like Invista, Formosa, Seadrift Coke. Those all go past the landfill and go to an outside site. And that's because you do not have the capabilities to accept the Class 1 waste right now. So what we think is, first of all, you're reducing their exposure. You'll be closer. Your companies don't normally like to transport that stuff 100 miles. And would you like to use a closer landfill? So that's all opportunity for increased volume into the site, which would be increased revenue to us and for the city. But I think the most important thing is that, when we're presenting this, we're presenting that, okay, the way we're looking at this, we'll do the cost up front. So the city isn't putting out anything. Republic's going to do the initial phase that Weaver Booth's doing, and to get the permitting, that's going to take about approximately a year, just if the city says, okay, this is something we'd like to go forward with, just to do the permits before we'd ever accept anything. Plus, then we'd have to get the cell completed and designed for Class 1 before we could ever take it. So this isn't an overnight type of thing. This is a long-range planning type of thing, and it's just an opportunity that the company saw and said, this is a place where we would potentially put our money. If they don't put it here, it'll probably go to Houston or San Antonio. But we think it's an opportunity for the city, and I think in my area I'd like to see it. I'm out of Corpus right now. We don't have a Class 1 capability. We're taking ours to San Antonio. So, that's how far we have to go. So, it's an opportunity for the business around here to take advantage too, because you have a lot of plants in your area that have to go a long ways to dispose of this waste. So it's something, I know this is our first run with the council, and we'd like something for y'all to consider, and something that, we think's a win-win. So
the next step is just to take a harder look at it. You would come back, I see Darrell nodding his head.
Yes, sir.
With
Yes,
some more
sir.
factual information, financial information, estimates and stuff.
Well, and we don't know, some of that stuff is, we're looking at, we don't know how many exactly number of rigs that'll be permitted and stuff like that. We know that each rig or each drilling rig they will generate 300 to 400 tons of waste per rig, and that when they put a platform down, they're not just drilling one rig anymore. They're drilling 3 or 4 locations, and they're drilling in different locations. So you may end up with, 1,500, 2,000 tons of waste from one pad. So it's a substantial amount of waste that the city could, that could come to the landfill.
But, and I mean, my initial reaction is getting it off the road to some extent. There's fewer miles of hauling it. And also, I'm curious how much of it actually, certainly don't want to accuse these companies of not disposing of it properly. But I'm wondering, sometimes out in some pasture, if this doesn't get well, just leave it here, because it's so difficult to find a place to dump it. So I would hope that maybe, proper disposal is what I'm trying to say is
Correct.
encouraged. Later on in the process, I'm much more interested in the longevity of it, the liability with respect to the city and all that kind of thing, which I know y'all will vet
Right, we'll address.
thoroughly. I'm sorry, Mr. Halpaska.
This tonight, though, you're just wondering if council wants to even pursue this at all.
Correct, correct.
Not that we were given a final
Just if you're
answer.
interested, and, and
Because
that's
all of the
between y'all
factors-
and staff.
Yes, all the factors that go into it, shortening the life of the landfill and our ability to expand the landfill, with based against that, balanced with additional revenues that might come in from it. And this is what y'all want to go out and look at.
Correct.
I think we ought to at least look at it.
Council, y'all.
I agree with Mr. Halapaska that we need more information because, the life of the landfill is definitely important to us. Plus, the cost involved. I know that you're saying that you're going to upfront the cost, but eventually we would have some cost involved too, right?
We would have the liability because we own the landfill. The permit is under the city of Victoria, so the liability becomes ours for the most part. Yes, ma'am. What we're looking for tonight, as the city manager said, is that we're asking for y'all to just tell us, yeah, we're interested in looking at this. We will come back with a much more in-depth report dealing with liability, financial, the whole 9 yards, and talk to you then and say, okay, we're ready to take this to TCEQ, to the Railroad Commission with your permission. We're at the very beginning, the starting point of this thing. before they, Republic, spend a bunch of money going somewhere that then we come back and say, oh, we're not interested. Or myself and staff put a bunch of time into it. We want to make sure that it was a direction y'all would like to go.
Well, to me, it's most important that we find out the life of how much life are we going to be losing off the landfill.
And I would
that's
remind
the main one.
council that right now we also have another company working on, Burns and McDonald is working on a landfill feasibility, longevity plan for us right now. So this will kind of play into that. I will get them information and as we go, and that will help him define his report when it comes back to me.
Okay, so you're going to incorporate
Yes,
this
ma'am.
into it? Okay, good.
Travers, you good? Okay. You have your
Thank
answer.
you.
Thank you for waiting through our meeting and presenting to us, so thank you. Okay, Boot Fest.
As we do every year, Gilbert's going to do a financial report on the Boot Fest numbers, and I think OC may have some, what I call fun facts.
OC will have some comments.
I have been waiting for this, and the city manager has been
Well-
telling me just be quiet and wait. So.
I was not
Last
sure
week-
that.
She was, but I'm just very curious.
Well, okay. I'm gonna let the officer hand out before I start. Mayor, Council, before you, it's a worksheet, and I call it a profit and loss statement. And on that statement, there's the final results from Boot Fest 2014. Along with it, I have all the years since the inception of Boot Fest when it started. So we started back in 2011, 2012, 2013. Of course, I have Boot Fest 2014. I just wanted to show you the whole layout, year by year, how it compares. And what I'm planning to do, keep it short and sweet, I'm just going to hit the highlight, some of the revenues and expenses, and give you the bottom results. And starting off, and I know OC might have some other comments after I finish as well. Starting off on beer sales, line 1, I labeled it 1 through 40-something, so we go by the line. So line 1, beer sales increased by $11,000, 10%. It's higher than last year. The total number of units, or how many beers actually sold, was 30,642 units. It's a little. Last year we sold about 27,000. The net income from the whole raw operation, just from the beer, you take the gross sales and the cost of goods sold, we netted about approximately $83,000 just from the beer operation itself. Margarita sales, that was something new to this year. On line 2, something new we tried out. Our gross sales were about 13,282. We sold about 2,700 cups of margaritas. Friday was real slow, but I tell you what, Saturday picked up. I mean, they were trying to keep those machines going. It's something Andrew and I learned. Hopefully we add to it next year and do, I think, a better job next year. Not that we can do a better job this year. Next year will be an outstanding job. How about that? The net income from the overall operation Margarita was about $3,400. There were some things we kind of learned on some of the expenses. So there's wine costs and some other operation costs that we can maybe fine tune. Merchandise, line 6. We had a net $6,500. We didn't have any cost of goods sold, meaning we didn't buy any shirts this year. What they actually did, so all the shirts that they were bought last year rolled over to 2014. They actually did a great job in that area, and they sold practically all of them, right, OC, I think? Practically all the shirts we bought last year are all gone, so that was a great job. Car show also was an increase, about $950. That was a great gig. I mean, for not doing anything, get $1,500, that's great, and here's your plaque. That's an all-standing program there. I couldn't say, I mean, there was some work done, but I mean, it's a great deal. Street vendors, line 10. A little less than last year. We had about $2,200 less. It's about a 15% drop. Mainly the fact there is that I think we become selective as to what kind of vendors we want in our establishment per se. In prior years, we just opened it up and we had all kind of food, sometimes doubled up on the same item and everything else. So this year, I think Parks and Rec did an outstanding job in making sure we fine-tune that and get the selective vendors we want there. The donations increased by $2,000, 4% over last year. Bottom line, total revenue increased by $28,000, which is about 16% over last year. On the expense side, line 20, beer sales, of course, it went up. The purchase cost went up about $5,000, mainly because of the volume we're buying. Line 14 through 16 is actually the cost of goods sold, costs associated to the margarita sale, which ended up being about $9.7 thousand. On line 18, ice purchase, it costs us about $3,400. We used about 1,500 bags of ices, almost the same amount last year. Overtime, line 25, it decreased by 3%. It went down by $1,300. And that was actually true cost. Since a couple of years ago, council directed us to do this, so we're doing that. Line 30, it stayed the same. Band and performance costs, about $65,000.5. Kids game, the programs that we provide kids, went down slightly by 18%. The cost, $3,500. But I think you had more of a turnout this year than prior years, which you had a higher cost, which is outstanding. Advertising was lower than last year by 15%, $3.4 thousand less. Equipment rental, line 33, was it was slightly higher. Mainly fact is that we required more outlets and there was more equipment needed on the electrical side. VIP, line 37, hospitality costs was up by 18%. That's about $1,300. Line 39, shuttle bus service cost was up by 34%, $2,000 higher than last year, mainly the fact because we expanded the number of days for the service itself. Total expenses came in about 1% lower than last year, about $3,500. So bottom line, without including the hot funds, you're looking at about a $61,000 negative, okay? When you throw in the hot fund supplement from the city side, you're looking at a positive $39,200. Last item, as you note on the bottom, if you look at the far hand right blue column, the last line, you got about $186,000. What that number represents is accumulation of fund balance from leftover hot fund has been accumulated over years and it still remains there to be used in forthcoming years. I believe council, OC, and staff might become later in the future to possibly give you some recommendation how we can use some of that money and to facilitate some of the new programs in Boot Fest, or even expand the current programs or add another type of activities within the Boot Fest program. OC, I don't know if you have any other comments, but the mic is yours. Any questions? Listen, I know I did fast. It's past 7 o'clock. Take it home, digest it. There's other meetings we can talk about it. And OC's here, Charmel's here, and I'm here. You always can pick up the horn and call us too as well. Thank you.
OC, you're going to add to that?
I'm going to add very briefly just a few of the other facts that aren't covered by the financials.
It's what I call fun facts.
Fun facts?
Not that finance is not fun, but you're fun too.
You're
fun
the
too,
unfun
Gilbert.
facts? Is that right?
That's all right, Gil, that's all right. Don't let it hurt your feelings.
Well, we did have absolutely one of the most successful Boot Fests. We had no major medical emergencies, which is really one of the top priorities, no major police or first responder incidents, which is really one of our top goals. And you don't have an event like that without honoring all the people that were involved in it, some far too many to really talk about. But I was trying to think, my CVB staff, I know Joel's here, I saw Bridget was in the back, I don't think Nancy could make it, who are really the heart behind coordinating all this. And at the same time, almost every department in the city, it takes a huge role in the actual process of implementing Boot Fest, from coordinating volunteers to all the different tasks that have to go off. People don't realize you basically have to plumb downtown Victoria into a little city with water and with power to really provide everything vendors need to carry on Boot Fest entertainment and Boot Fest sales. So we also want to thank the volunteers. If you'll notice, I believe that's line 4, we had 467 volunteer spots filled. And And frankly, we're using a new software for it. I think that's a fairly accurate number. It looks like it's down a little bit, but frankly, about the only place we really didn't have the number of volunteers we could have really used was in the kids area, but things went very smoothly. As I mentioned, city staff, one of the other groups that I have to thank before we go into this real quickly is all our residents and businesses in downtown Victoria. We do inconvenience them for 2 days, really 2 days and a night as the festival gets set up. We can't do that without their cooperation for the most part, and things went off without a hitch. So again, the only thing I want to point out attendance-wise, Rick McBrayer and the kind of the safety team do the monitoring and the attendance estimates for it. They're very comfortable with the numbers they've come up with, and that's 32 to 36,000 over the 2 days. Very conservative figures, and Rick explained to me how they do the estimates. Very comfortable with that, and we always kind of take their lower estimates to be doubly sure. We don't really even think that really accounts for all the day traffic in and out of the different areas. That's really peak traffic time in the evening times. We saw a huge increase in the shuttle buses. As Gilbert mentioned, this is the first year we offered Friday night shuttle buses, and the shuttle usage jumped up to over almost 3,000 riders. We sold a lot of beers. As Gil mentioned, you noticed the advertising was down a little bit. We're relying more and more heavily on basically online advertising, which is considerably less expensive and we think considerably more effective than some of the broad-based media we've used in years past. All the other numbers are basically the same. Gilbert mentioned we had a slight drop in vendor revenue. As he also mentioned, we did do a jury. We're being more selective of the type of vendors we want at Boot Fest. We may cut that number down a little bit more next year and possibly add more food vendors. Really the only major, I say major, the only real common complaint we got is the line wait is pretty long if you want to wait in line for food. So we're looking at possibly decreasing a few retail vendors, adding some more food vendors as a way to achieve more efficiency on that side. That's really it. As Gilbert mentioned, we do have a large balance that we're carrying forward there. We do have some suggestions. I visited with the city manager about that, and we'll be happy to come back in some future date and visit with council about some of our ideas about how we might make Boot Fest even better in using some of those funds.
Very good.
Any questions?
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
I saw the pictures. It was amazing. I see the numbers as far as crowd estimate. What do you deem the maximum amount of population that we could that
I think that's it.
And I think we can outgrow ourselves in that
yeah.
spot.
You know what's interesting, and one of the things, one of our ideas is, if you look at the Saturday night crowd, and you look at the averages of the crowd of Boot Fest attendance on both Friday and Saturday nights. We've had over 30,000 really on two of those events. We had a real home run when Easton Corbin was here, and we had the same thing happen when Aaron Watson was here. We had perfect weather this past Boot Fest. It was absolutely perfect weather. We didn't have a whole lot of major conflicts in the region for us on Saturday night. And so one of the things we're looking at is possibly coming forward with an idea to use some of the balance to buy a higher-end entertainer on Friday night. If we've got the whole festival set up, and we don't really want to get any higher than the crowd we have Saturday night, we spread the crowd out and try and get a similar crowd, or maybe something a little less than that on Friday night as well. Maybe throw in a fireworks display for it to accompany that, to where we bring people down Friday and Saturday night, but we don't want it to grow a whole lot larger. Our first responders, our safety team and stuff, I think they would like to see it no more than really what we're able to draw this year. Yes, sir.
Did we track hotel occupancy?
We don't have a whole lot. We don't have any hotel reports yet, but we can't. Frankly, I don't know if we're tracking that, and I don't think we have yet. But I'll see if we can get some reports from the hospital. From our hotels. The thing about it is, a lot of people can come into town and spend the night in the hotel. They're not necessarily going to tell anybody they're spending the night in the hotel for Boot Fest. We did have some specials, I believe, from several hotels. that probably would be about the only quantifiable data we had to see how many people might have booked a special rate for Boot Fest. And I will try and find that out. Yes, I'm sorry, I did not,
Well,
I
again,
did
you
not
know,
look into
going
that.
back to what the hotel tax is.
Yes, sure.
And not anything about we're looking at out-of-town, identifying out-of-town people coming in for the weekend or
Right.
the nights.
And we know we have a lot of people that spend the night in hotels for Boot Fest. It's very hard to try and quantify how many. I mean, it's really almost impossible. Most people that spend the night in hotel rooms going to a festival, they don't necessarily say that to anybody. They spend the night. I think all our bed and breakfasts were full. We know we get a lot of hotel usage during the weekend. How much of it, 100% for sure, is quantifiable for the Boot Fest? I'll try and get some data on it, but frankly, we don't really know. Yeah.
Very good.
That function would be a little more alchemy than science anyway, huh?
I'm sorry?
That function would be a little more alchemy than science anyway.
Well, it could, yeah.
Yeah.
We know a lot of people stay in hotels, people like the kids' booth entertainers. Some of the hotels partner with us on that and do it, but those are people that are actually working the festival. How many come and stay in hotels to enjoy it? It's a really good question, but it's really hard data to try and get.
Other than seeing what the spike looked like between the previous weekend and the past weekend before. And
If you can get the hoteliers to give you the information, we'd love to have that. It'd be a pretty easy way to give an estimate anyway. Yeah, but they're not very. They can be secretive about their numbers for obvious reasons. Yeah.
I wonder if they would submit it without. In other words, all we're interested in is a total. We don't care which hotel had what.
Sure.
I wonder if CVB, if y'all could. If they would submit their occupancy rate for a weekend, and you might know who's submitting it, but you're not going to share that with anybody. You're just going to average
Right.
up. So out of 2,400 rooms, you would know, and then
Yeah.
you would have that to measure against.
And
as
there
Mr.
may be a
Lopez
way
has
we could
suggested.
get that, actually. There is a
That way they
report
wouldn't, because they don't. I don't obviously know what's in their minds, but I would imagine they don't want the other hotels to know.
They
So if we
absolutely
don't tell
would
the other
not.
hotels, and
Yes.
Obviously, all you'd be looking for is, a prior weekend and a past
Yeah,
weekend,
sure.
see if there was a spike
but
and
we
if
could
it
use that
indicated anything.
for other events too.
Yeah.
Just as
Well, and there is a
anecdotal.
report, but only hoteliers get it, that has that information. I will be honest and say we have seen that information in the past, not necessarily for Boot Fest, but we have seen how hotels track each other and how they compete against each other. But it is very privileged and frankly very expensive information that they typically don't share with anybody, frankly.
Well, it was a wonderful event. That's all I know. I
It was
was
great,
there,
yeah.
and we were
And
absolutely.
thank you all for your support. Again, as Gilbert mentioned, the $100,000 budgeted from council, that really allows that festival to be free. And if you look at how many families come down and enjoy all the kids' corral, no pay, it really is, it's a very unique festival. And again, thanks in large part to the generosity of you folks up there on that day.
But the $100,000 upfront money all came back plus.
Yeah, well, and as Gilbert explains, when we have that $100,000, we're already using it. We had our music committee. We're going to have to use the $100,000 we get budgeted for booking our acts, for booking the electrical contractors to plumb and wire downtown. We have to use those funds for absolutely laying out the foundation for Boot Fest every year. So we have to pay for all that prior to the festival even starting. So
We
those
need to clarify
funds
that. We need to-
absolutely are come in handy.
We need to clarify that. All but 40,000 or 60,000 of it. Okay, just for
Yeah.
clarification. Okay. And we have the good Lord really graced us with good weather. And you couldn't have had a perfect timing for a small little front to blow through.
They're
so-
gonna look out.
It's going to rain one year, but that not
We
while
have
we're
insurance for that.
right. We do. I saw that. Thank you. OC.
Thank you.
Okay. Is the only thing left the Plan 2035?
Yes, the advisory committee conversation. And Jared, are you going to kind of talk a little bit about that, or you want me to talk a little bit about that, or?
Whatever you would like. I can be really brief and just tell you that this advisory committee is just one of several activities that'll make up the community engagement, public participation process for the Plan 2035. And this Committee is going to meet only going to meet 5 to 6 times throughout the planning process, which, if you'll recall, is about a year and a half long. There'll be some listening sessions at the beginning of the process. There'll be 6 of those that start in January. So obviously, if there's some names that don't make it to this appointment, we would certainly welcome those so that we can make sure that they're invited to those listening sessions that begin in January. And then, just as a reminder, you have our first joint workshop with Planning Commission. It's December 4th. It's not that far away. There'll actually be 3 of those in various phases of the planning process as well, and there'll be some big public open houses as well. But anyway, this is just a small part of the overall community engagement process. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to let you guys hammer this out.
I would like to, the council has this handout. All of you have that. Let me explain what that is. I took some discretion. This is the advisory committee makeup of slots, and it's come up here before. And for example, I know Ms. Solis has indicated she wants to be on it. But I took some discretion here, and we pulled from various existing boards. I went ahead and let's start from top to bottom. And obviously, each council member should pick someone from their district so that we have a good representation geographically. You can see that I went ahead and spoke to Mr. Williams, Keith Williams. I was going to choose him. And then we have spots for 2 council members, which I left vacant. I know Ms. Solis wants to be one of those. We will need another. And let me back up real quick. We'd like to have this at our next meeting all filled in. So perhaps another council member, we're missing 2 of them, might want to be interested. I have no problem with Ms. Solis. I just didn't want to take the liberty of putting her name in at this point. And then the library board, Liz Morgan-Roth. I have spoken to all of these people, by the way, and I did tell them that this is all subject to final approval of the council. Liz Morgan-Roth, she's been through several academies with the city, or at least one I know of, and she is currently on the library board. Mr. Knight, the sales tax board, he's the chairman of that and has significant experience with city issues, as you guys well know. Mark Hinojosa with the Parks Commission, I talked to him. He's very eager to serve. And the 2 planning commissioners are both, is the word officers? The current president of, that's not the term of planning commission. Chair, excuse me, is going to go off fairly soon. So his term will end before this. And I called him and spoke with him, and he agreed that Mr. Hayek and Mr. Spears, one is the secretary and one is the assistant chair of the Planning Commission. And then member from the last committee, the original 2020 committee, which I was on myself, Victor Marshall, and I spoke to him, and he is willing. So what I would like to ask council to do again is to find someone from your district and be ready at our next meeting with a name. And then we still need another council member who would like to be on it as well. If we can get this all completed on December 2nd, and we can move forward from there. You have any thoughts?
I don't want to be on the committee, so I'm going to limit myself.
Okay. Well, that narrows it down. I do not. I'll be at some of the meetings anyway, I think, but, okay.
I'll nominate him.
Could nominate the 2 that aren't here, could flip a coin and put their name in, but no, I'm kidding. We won't do that. Okay. We can assume Ms. Solis will be one of them, and then the next
Well, why don't we
meeting.
nominate those that are absent?
Well, that's what I was saying. Yeah. Let's give them a chance to be here.
Oh, well, got to be fair.
And so this is an 18-month process, as Jared mentioned, 5 or 6 meetings. And then there will be numerous listening committees, as I understand, because I know a few other people that would like to participate, and they can participate on the listening committees. And I don't know how that selection process will go. Perhaps names can be supplied. Okay. Do you want to touch on that real quick?
Like I said, there'll be 6 of them. We actually have those dates scheduled. They're morning, lunch, evening sessions will be across a couple of days in January. We would like to have those limited to 12 to 15 per session, so that gets us a really wide swath. We've already kind of come up with some names, those that are heads of various agencies and whatnot, but there's still lots of just regular folks that represent the broad section of the community. We need help with names. What we'd like to do is before the holidays get too far along is to go ahead and get invitations out to those individuals so that they can go online and sign up for the listening session that they'd like to attend. We're not going to assign them to a specific listening session, but there's several opportunities to be able to pick a date and a time that's convenient to them. So they won't be focused on an all builder group or something like that, or all nonprofit. We'll get hope to get a good cross section of the community in each session and work with them on some issue identification and big picture thinking. So,
Can you perhaps, at the next meeting, have a more specific list and dates ready for us for those listening?
Sure.
Okay.
But in the meantime, what Jared's saying is any names of people in the community that have an interest in this planning process, go ahead and give them to us, and we'll make sure that they get invited. So
absolutely. So we're looking for at least 80 individuals we can invite. So send us your names.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any further business? Okay. Having no further business, we're adjourned. Thank you.
So we're looking for at least 80 individuals we can invite. So send us your names.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any further business? Okay. Having no further business, we're adjourned. Thank you.